They used to say that silence was peace, that the absence of war meant victory. But on the night the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, I learned that silence can be the most terrible sound of all. I am Commander Reth Vuran of the Vur'kan Dominion, monitoring Outpost Vorthal, orbiting the dead human colony of Eos 9. We've been stationed here for 70 years, custodians of an empty graveyard. The humans had fallen long ago, their worlds burned, their fleets scattered into dust. Their once proud blue planet reduced to whispers in data archives, and the ghosts of their machines drifting through vacuum. To us, they were myths, primitive, emotional, chaotic creatures who had burned bright and brief. The Dominion saw them as a lesson in entropy. The Council called them the Children of Ash. But as I stared into the endless void of the Orion Spur that night, I realized something the Council never did. Ashes can still smolder. The first signal came through at 0300 hours. A pulse, faint, rhythmic. Too structured to be cosmic noise, too deliberate to be chance. "Another glitch," my second officer hissed. "Ignore it." But I didn't. I routed it through the decryption relay. The pulse repeated, soft at first, then growing stronger, sharper, like a heartbeat struggling back to life. Then came the sound. It wasn't a distress call, not even a voice, just static, layered with something beneath. A rhythm, a pattern. My auditory translator strained to separate it. The computer rendered 3 words in Terran Standard, words no one had uttered in a century. We remember everything. The bridge went silent. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, mandibles twitching, spines stiff. Someone laughed nervously, trying to break the tension. "Psychological warfare," he said. "Old Terran trick. Ghost transmissions, but I knew better. I had seen human eyes once, on the battlefield of Alaric Prime, the same eyes that watched entire continents fall, yet refused to blink. There is something ancient in them, something patient and terrifying." I turned the transmission over and over, searching for meaning. The data was fragmented, but its timing perfect. Each pulse aligned with the Dominion's encrypted traffic intervals, as if whoever sent it knew exactly when we'd be listening. No random interference could do that. I filed the anomaly with Central Command. Their reply came hours later. "Disregard. Possible remnant AI chatter." They didn't even attach a security tag. That's when I realized how blind we'd become. We had ruled for so long, grown so certain of our dominance that the idea of human resurgence had become a joke. We mocked their fragility, their emotions, their need for meaning. We never understood that these were not weaknesses, they were catalysts. In the observation bay, the stars glowed like cold embers. I stared at the pale shimmer of Titan Station in the distance, the old Terran outpost now nothing but scrap. For the first time in decades, I wondered what lay beneath its frozen crust. Later, I replayed the signal again. This time, something new appeared, hidden deep in the static. A faint harmonic, almost musical, repeating with mathematical precision. My translator displayed a string of coordinates and a date. The date was tomorrow. I felt my chest tighten, a biological reflex we Vur'kan rarely experience. Fear. I ordered the communications array shut down, but the signal returned, this time stronger, forcing its way through encrypted Dominion channels, overriding our systems. Lights dimmed. Screens flickered. Across every frequency, the same message roared to life. "We remember everything." The words echoed through the ship like thunder in the void. I ran to the viewport as warning klaxons erupted across the deck. In the distance, a faint light appeared, a glimmer just beyond the shadow of Saturn's rings. Too bright for a reflection. Too focused to be natural, it pulsed in perfect sync with the signal. Our scanners reported nothing. No mass reading. No heat. Just light. "Commander," my sensor officer whispered. "It's coming closer." The bridge fell silent again. Even the engines seemed to hesitate, and for the first time in 70 years, the void between stars began to speak again. They said Titan was sacred ground, a place of remembrance, not war. Its orange skies and methane seas had once borne witness to the signing of the Galactic Peace Accords, a fragile truce forged from exhaustion, not forgiveness. For nearly a century, no weapon had been fired in its orbit. Until that night. I stood on the command deck of the Vorthal, overlooking the pale curve of Saturn's moon. The rings shimmered like a halo of frozen fire, beautiful, ancient, and indifferent. Our fleet had arrived to investigate the source of the human signal we intercepted from the Orion Spur. Command assumed it was a malfunction, a leftover AI, but I felt it, something deliberate pulsing through the void, something alive. At 1900 hours, our proximity sensors flickered. A faint gravitational ripple brushed against the ship's hull, a disturbance without a source. "Micrometeor activity?" my officer offered. "No," I replied quietly. "Something's moving out there." The stars behind Titan distorted, bending like heat above a desert horizon. Then, from the distortion, it emerged. A single Terran warship, old by any measure, its armor scarred, pitted, worn by centuries. No visible shields, no escort craft, yet it drifted with a slow, terrifying confidence, like a predator that had never forgotten how to kill. On its bow, faintly illuminated by Saturn's reflected light, was a sigil, an ancient Earth emblem, one we had erased from our archives after their fall. A simple blue circle, a white crescent, and the outline of a human hand. "The signals originating from that vessel," reported my comms officer. "Identification impossible. No transponder, no registry. Send a warning," I ordered. "Standard Dominion protocol." The transmission went out. Carried on 10 subspace bands. The ship didn't answer. Instead, its engines flared to life, softly, almost lazily, and it turned to face us. Every scanner on the Vorthal screamed with data anomalies. Power readings climbed past theoretical limits. "Radiation spikes. Quantum distortion. How is that possible?" someone whispered. "That's pre-collapse tech." Our fleet commander, Admiral Krith, ordered an immediate strike. "All ships," his voice thundered over the comms, "disable and capture. The humans will not rise again." 12 Dominion cruisers broke formation, their drives igniting the darkness. Missiles streaked toward the lone Terran vessel, carving trails of fire through Titan's orbit. Impact in 5 seconds, 4, 3, and then every missile vanished, not exploded, not deflected, just gone. The tracking screens turned to static. Our targeting computers failed, overwhelmed by interference. Through the viewport, I saw the human ship shimmer, light bending around it like water disturbed by an unseen hand. Then it fired. No visible weapon, no beam, no projectile. Just a flash, white and absolute, brighter than any sun. For a moment, all I could see was the afterimage of that light burning across my vision. When the glare faded, I realized what had happened. 12 Dominion ships, gone. Not destroyed, not debris. Erased. The space they had occupied twisted, warped, as if reality itself recoiled. Saturn's rings rippled like disturbed silk. Titan's upper atmosphere boiled, lightning crawling through its methane haze. The human vessel didn't pursue. It simply drifted forward, through the expanding void where our fleet had once been. On the comms, a whisper, a voice, faint, almost reverent. It wasn't machine code this time. It was a human voice, speaking in their ancient tongue. "We tried to be kind. You mistook it for weakness." Every hair along my carapace rose. The crew looked to me for orders, but I had none. I could only stare at the ship as it moved toward Titan, casting a shadow across the icy plains. It didn't conquer, it didn't claim. It remembered. Telemetry feeds went dark one by one. Our long-range sensors recorded gravitational distortions around Titan's orbit, like folds in space-time itself. And then the signal vanished. The Dominion Council demanded an explanation. Our surviving ships transmitted the data logs, but even the recordings couldn't be trusted. Frames missing, sensors inverted, energy readings that defied every known model. To this day, we have no record of the weapon that erased 12 capital ships in a single instant. But I remember the feeling in that moment, the crushing silence that followed, heavier than any explosion. It wasn't victory. It wasn't vengeance. It was judgment. And as the Vorthal drifted amid the silent debris, our systems flickered once more. A final transmission from the void carried on an old Terran frequency, Phase 1 complete. Then nothing. Titan's orbit returned to stillness, as if nothing had happened. But the rings had changed. Faint streaks of glass and metal glinting where our fleet once stood. And somewhere beyond the solar horizon, something vast stirred awake. The council chamber was never meant to feel fear. It was built to embody order, a perfect sphere of crystal and gold orbiting the blue star of Kereth, its architecture humming with centuries of diplomacy. Within those walls, empires had risen, species had found peace, and rebellions had died in silence. But on that day, the silence carried weight, the kind that presses against the soul before the storm breaks. I was there, a representative of the Vur'kan Dominion. Still shaken by the events at Titan, 12 of our finest warships erased by a single Terran vessel. The Council dismissed it as impossible, a fabrication of damaged data. The humans have no fleets, the Cathor delegate hissed. No infrastructure, no allies. They are extinct in all but name. Yet beneath their arrogance, I could smell it, the faint trace of fear. Every species in that chamber had, at some point, crossed humanity. Exploited them, mocked them, underestimated them. Now, whispers of their return rippled through the stars like the memory of fire. When the alarm sounded, the chamber's glow dimmed to crimson. Unscheduled arrival, the AI announced. Docking Bay 2, no one moved at first. Visitors without invitation were impossible. The council station was surrounded by fleets and defended by orbital sentinels. No ship could breach it without authorization. And yet, someone had. The grand doors opened with a hiss. A figure stepped through, small by most galactic standards, unarmored, unarmed, wearing nothing but a simple black uniform bearing a faded insignia, a blue and white sphere divided by continents long forgotten. A human. Their face was pale, scarred across the jaw. One eye was mechanical, gleaming faintly like a dying star. The other was human, but darker than any void. Every gaze in the chamber locked onto them, and for the first time in centuries, no one spoke. The human walked to the center of the council floor, steps slow, deliberate. Their boots echoed against marble older than most civilizations. "I am Envoy Rhea Calden," they said. Their voice was calm, steady, carrying no trace of rage. "Representative of the Terran Accord." "The what?" spat the Drassian delegate. "The Accord," Rhea repeated, "of all remaining human nations. There is no longer division among us." Their mechanical eye flickered, scanning the counselors as if cataloging the guilty. For decades, we remained silent. "You thought we were broken. You mistook grief for surrender," Calden paused, looking toward the central dais, where the supreme chancellor of the council sat, the ancient, towering being of the Vortex species whose word could end wars. "You broke our peace," Rhea said quietly. "Now we will show you what it cost." Then the chamber lights died. Every console, every drone, every communication relay went dark. The holofeed from the station's orbital cameras flickered and cut to static. A heartbeat of total darkness followed. Cold, suffocating, endless. When power returned, the human was gone. The council erupted in chaos. "Find them!" "How did they get past security?" "What was that transmission?" No one could answer. Our scanners showed no trace of the envoy, no departing vessel, no warp signature. It was as if they had simply ceased to exist. But the broadcast hadn't ended. Across the galaxy, every government feed, every military transmission, every commercial network was hijacked simultaneously. The screen showed the Earth, scarred, barren, half-shrouded in clouds. Long considered lifeless. Then, one by one, points of light flared across its surface. Shipyards. Hundreds of them. Ancient orbital rings once thought to be rusted relics ignited like constellations reborn. Engines roared, scaffolds collapsed into sparks, and colossal silhouettes rose from the planet's shadow. Starships forged not by automation, but by human hands. And there were thousands. They weren't sleek or elegant like Dominion craft. They were raw, forged of iron and fire, each one carrying the defiance of a species that refused to die. Our analysts tried to jam the feed. It didn't matter. The broadcast wasn't coming from a single source. It came from everywhere, relayed through old satellites, forgotten beacons, even the communication grids we'd left dormant for centuries. Then came the voice again, the same calm, human voice that had stood in our chamber only moments ago. We do not seek conquest. We do not seek mercy. We seek remembrance. The image shifted. A close-up of a human soldier, armor hand-forged, eyes cold and bright. Around them stood thousands more, silent, unified. Their banners carrying no nations, no crests, only the image of Earth. Glowing faintly against black, for every world you took, we built 10 in silence. For every life you ended, we forged a legacy in the dark. You thought time would erase us. You were wrong. The screen split into hundreds of feeds, shipyards igniting across Mars, Luna, Europa, even the asteroid belts. The void around Sol System burned with the light of awakening steel. And then, for the first time in recorded history, the galaxy trembled. Sensor stations from the outer rim to the core began detecting warp ruptures, gravitational waves that made stars flicker. The data was clear. Fleets, massive fleets, were mobilizing from Sol at faster-than-light velocities no known civilization could replicate. Impossible, whispered the Chancellor. Their technology was centuries behind. No, I murmured, watching the streams of light leave Earth's orbit. They had time. In that moment, every race in the Council felt it, a primal dread older than language. Humanity's silence had not been surrender. It had been gestation. By dawn cycle, the Terran Accord had vanished from all sensors, their fleets scattering into the dark. No ultimatums, no warnings, only that final transmission, looping across every network until it burned itself into our collective memory. The age of consequence begins. The chamber that once governed empires fell into chaos. Some demanded alliance, others war. But I sat still, watching the holographic projection of Earth flicker before us. It was no longer the cradle of a fallen species. It was the forge of something new. And the universe, for all its arrogance, had no idea what was coming. War had always been a constant in the galaxy, a currency of empires. But what came after the fall of the Council was not war. It was reckoning. Entire star systems went dark in the first week. No declaration. No invasion fleets announcing their banners. Just silence followed by absence. The first reports came from the Venar Expanse, an entire sector of 8 inhabited worlds, gone offline within 20 minutes. Patrol fleets sent to investigate found nothing but cinders orbiting cold stars. Not wreckage. Not debris. Ash. We, the Vur'kan Dominion, called it impossible. Then we watched Centauri burn. I was there. Commander Reth Vuran, Vur'kan Battle Wing Delta 4, 49 ships under my command. 49 reasons to believe in our superiority. The humans stripped that belief from us in less than an hour. It began with a shadow, a flicker on our outer sensors, barely a blip in the black. Our scanners locked on nothing. No mass signature, no warp trace. Then came the interference, a low hum threading through the comms like breath caught between frequencies. At first we thought it was static. Then I heard it clearly. Melody, old Terran music, a voice, soft, mournful, carried through the void. Remember me when I am gone away. The entire bridge froze. It wasn't a broadcast. It wasn't coming from any single ship. It came from everywhere. The background radiation itself seemed to sing. Moments later, the tactical display lit up. Contacts, hundreds of them, appearing out of nowhere, dropping from FTL without ripple or signature. Their formations were perfect, mathematical, almost elegant. The Terran Accord had arrived. They didn't transmit demands. They didn't identify themselves. They didn't speak at all. The first salvo came without warning. Our frontline cruisers vanished in blossoms of white light. No fire, no explosion, just matter dissolving like snow in a furnace. Adaptive weaponry, cried my science officer. Their munitions are changing phase on impact. Our shields can't compensate. Within seconds, our defense grid was blind. Their targeting algorithms anticipated every evasive pattern, every vector adjustment, every attempt at retreat. We changed formation. They changed faster. We scrambled frequencies. They predicted the next one before we could finish switching. They learned, I realized it then. The humans weren't using conventional AI. Their war machines thought like them. Improvised, adapted, felt. They had turned war into an art form. I ordered our ships to scatter, to break their predictive net. For a moment it worked. Our readings cleared. Then their second wave appeared. Smaller vessels, unmanned interceptors, each moving like a shard of lightning. They didn't fire. They collided. Kamikaze drones, thousands of them, sacrificing themselves with surgical precision. It was beautiful. Horrifyingly beautiful. The Dominion's fleet screamed across the comms, captains begging for orders, for mercy, for meaning. None came, and through it all, the music never stopped. Low, haunting human voices, singing in a language no translator could fully interpret. A dirge carried across the void. "When I am dead, my dearest." It was a song, they said, from Earth's ancient past, a farewell, a lament for the living and the dead alike. When the Vorthal, my command ship, finally locked onto their flagship, I saw it. The Eidolon. Its hull was unlike anything I'd ever seen, black as the void, shaped not for intimidation but efficiency. Its surface shimmered with moving patterns, adaptive armor that flowed like liquid metal. At its core, a pulse of light, rhythmic, almost alive. I ordered a direct strike. Our entire wing fired. Plasma, kinetic, quantum, every weapon we had. The energy waves crashed against the Eidolon, bending, twisting, then dissolving into nothing. The human flagship responded once. One beam, silent. White, clean. It passed through 4 of our cruisers without slowing, leaving behind nothing but drifting atoms. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't war. It was execution. We had mocked them, hunted them, called them relics of a violent past. But in their silence, they had become something far more dangerous, something focused, precise, inevitable. As our fleet disintegrated around me, I opened a final channel to the human flagship. A desperate attempt at parley, Terran Accord vessel. This is Commander Vur'kan of the Dominion. We seek surrender. For a moment, there was nothing. Only static, then a voice. Female, calm, unflinching. We do not accept surrender, Commander. We remember. The transmission ended. I watched the Eidolon drift closer, its silhouette framed against Centauri's dying sun. Dozens of smaller ships followed. Escorts, repair drones, carriers. Their formation was poetry. Their precision divine. Our remaining ships fired blindly, lashing out in panic. It didn't matter. The Terran fleets moved like a single organism, learning, adapting, devouring, and then suddenly they stopped. All across the battlefront, their weapons powered down. Their ships held position, engines silent. The music faded, replaced by a deep, harmonic hum, almost like prayer. Sensors detected something vast behind them. Not a fleet, not a planet. A structure, massive, geometric, partially cloaked. It appeared for only a moment, then vanished. Command later called it a mirage, a gravitational distortion. But I saw it, I felt it. It was a construct the size of a moon, forged of alloy unknown to any species. Its signature burned into my mind like an afterimage. The humans didn't just rebuild fleets. They were building something greater, something that transcended war. When the last of our systems failed, I watched from my viewport as the Eidolon turned away, leaving the wreckage of 1,000 Dominion ships to drift silently among the stars. No victory broadcast. No declaration. Only the whisper of their final transmission across the void. This was mercy. And then they were gone. Entire sectors fell in the following weeks. Civilizations collapsed not from human weapons but from terror. No one could comprehend how they fought, how they knew. Some believed they had merged with their AIs, others that they had become one collective consciousness. But I knew better. The humans had not become machines. They had become consequence incarnate, and as I drifted through the ruins of Centauri, my ship broken and powerless, I understood the truth. No one in the galaxy dared speak aloud. Humanity no longer fought for survival. They fought for remembrance, Epsilon Prime, the heart of the Dominion, the unbreakable fortress. For centuries, its name had been our symbol of defiance, our final line, our unyielding wall against the chaos of the galaxy. Its orbital defense grid was the most advanced in existence. 12 planetary shields, overlapping in perfect resonance, powered by a sun core reactor buried deep beneath the surface. Even a black hole couldn't pierce it until the humans came. They didn't announce their arrival. No fleets decloaked in orbit, no bombardments to soften the surface. They simply appeared. One by one, our satellites blinked offline, not destroyed, just disabled. The outer perimeter fell into silence, followed by the defense platforms, then the high orbital array, and then, through the clouds, they descended. Dropships, thousands of them, streaking through the atmosphere like falling meteors. Each craft moved in perfect formation, silent and symmetrical, guided by an intelligence that felt almost alive. When they landed, Epsilon Prime trembled. Millions of human soldiers marched across the crimson plains, their armor glinting with faint luminescence, silver and black, patterned with lines that pulsed like veins of living light. Their helmets reflected the burning sky, their steps in unison, their banners absent. They came not as conquerors. They came as judgment. Our planetary cannons opened fire. Every mountain shook. The sky ignited with plasma storms. For a moment, it seemed we could hold. Then the atmosphere changed. A strange frequency rippled through the air, soft, harmonic, almost like a breath. The power conduits in our defense grid began to overload. Systems flickered. Weapons locked. The human ground forces raised their arms, and suddenly our energy weapons turned off. Entire circuits went dead. Their technology didn't counter ours. It reprogrammed it. Every defense we had, hacked, hijacked, turned into silence. I remember standing on the Citadel balcony as the first human formations entered the capital. They marched through the city gates, not firing a single shot. The streets were filled with the sound of their boots striking the obsidian roads in perfect rhythm. Not the sound of invasion, but of inevitability. The civilians waited, trembling. But there was no slaughter. No executions instead. The humans brought supplies. I watched as they distributed food to our hungry, water to our wounded, and medicine that healed faster than anything we'd ever developed. They're medics. They didn't wear insignias, only a small emblem on their chests, a broken circle encasing a star. The symbol of the Terran Accord. Our commanders called it propaganda, a tactic to demoralize us. But I saw their eyes behind the visors. There was no hatred there, only sorrow. Later, in the ruins of the Western District, I saw a group of human soldiers burying Dominion dead, our dead, with care and silence. They placed metal shards over the graves, each inscribed with names translated into their own language. One of our lieutenants, wounded and delirious, cursed at them. A human knelt beside him, bandaged his wounds, and whispered softly, "We didn't want this. You forced it." And for the first time in my life, I felt something colder than fear, shame, because I understood what he meant. Humanity had once believed in peace. They had offered treaties, coexistence, the promise of unity. We, all of us, had mocked them, exploited them, enslaved their colonies, thinking them weak, sentimental, naive. And in their mercy, they had given us 1,000 chances to change. We didn't. Now their vengeance wasn't rage. It was disappointment. Deep, profound, and absolute. That was the cruelty of it. When the Terran High Commander entered the Citadel, our generals braced for execution. But she didn't kill them. She ordered the human banners lowered and spoke with a voice that carried across the plaza, amplified not by machinery, but by conviction. The Dominion is over, not because we destroyed it, but because you did. We will rebuild what you broke, not for you, but for those you silenced. Her words echoed across every broadcast channel, translated into 100 tongues. The war wasn't over. but the message was clear. The age of the Dominion had ended. I remember asking myself, why mercy? Why now? Then I realized this was never conquest. It was lesson. In the days that followed, the humans dismantled our war machines, not with explosives, but with engineers. They repurposed our reactors to power hospitals. They rewired our factories to produce food. Their soldiers patrolled, but not as occupiers, as guardians. Still, there was no joy in their victory. They moved like mourners, as if every battle they won carved another scar into their collective soul. At night you could hear them, not celebrating but singing, softly, in groups. Old Terran hymns carried through the still air. We once dreamed of stars together. It wasn't triumph. It was remembrance. Some of our surviving officers whispered that the humans had transcended, merged mind and machine into something more than mortal. But I knew the truth. They hadn't become gods. They had become witnesses. Witnesses to every atrocity we committed, every promise we broke, every peace we shattered. Their mercy wasn't forgiveness. It was the mirror we couldn't bear to face. When they finally left Epsilon Prime, they didn't leave banners or monuments. Only silence. Their ships ascended into the clouds, their thrusters whispering instead of roaring. In their place, they left a single beacon, a small silver pillar standing in the city's heart. It bore no inscription, only light. When scanned, it played one final message, broadcast in a dozen languages. We remember the fallen. We rebuild the broken. Do not follow us. Learn from us. That was the last transmission from the Terran Accord before they vanished into the outer rim. Centuries from now, Epsilon Prime will tell stories of the reckoning, of the day the unbreakable fortress fell not to fury, but to grace. And those who remember will know humanity's greatest weapon was never their machines. It was their memory. We thought it would end with fire. That humanity, having conquered the stars, would burn them as they left. But instead, they vanished. No armistice. No surrender. No declaration of peace. One dawn cycle, our sensors detected their fleets in orbit, thousands of ships gliding through the void, aligned like constellations reborn. The next cycle, nothing. The Terran frequencies went dark. No signals, no comms, only the quiet hum of empty space. At first, we believed it was a ruse, another psychological strike. The Dominion remnants scoured the sectors near Epsilon Prime, Centauri, and the old Earth routes. We found wreckage, yes, but none of theirs. Only our own. It was as if the humans had simply stepped out of existence. And in that silence, the galaxy began to rebuild, but not in hope. In fear, the survivors whispered of the age of iron silence, a time when even warlords refused to speak too loudly lest the humans hear. The merchant guilds banned expeditions toward the Terran Expanse. The Orion cartels forbade the mention of Earth in any recorded archive. Even the Council, reborn under new banners, left an entire quadrant marked in crimson on the star maps. Unreachable space, but we all knew its true name. The Watcher's Veil. They said humanity was still there, hidden, watching, ensuring that no one repeated the mistakes that led to their wrath. Children grew up on stories of human ghosts drifting between the stars, silent wardens guarding the fragile peace. And yet, some believed something else entirely, that the humans weren't gone. They were preparing for what? None dared to guess. I am one of the few still alive who saw them with my own eyes, saw that look, that impossible calm in the face of cosmic chaos. I've seen the way their gaze pierces not through the body, but through the soul. It's the look of a species that has moved beyond vengeance, beyond victory. In their eyes, there was no hatred, no fury, only inevitability. As if they knew something we did not. As if every step, every war, every loss had been part of a design older than stars. Sometimes, late in the station cycles, when the nebula storms pass over the viewing decks, I catch glimpses of light, faint rhythmic flashes across the void. 3 pulses, a pause, 3 more. I once dismissed them as cosmic radiation, but deep down I know better. It's a message. The same one they broadcast before it all began. We remember everything. And that terrifies me more than their armies ever did, because remembering means they are still awake. Centuries have passed since the reckoning. Civilizations rose again, each one promising not to repeat the past. Yet I see the signs: fleets forming, colonies arming, empires whispering of conquest under new names. History is repeating, as it always does. But this time, the stars themselves seem to hold their breath. Our deep space observatories record anomalies beyond the galactic rim, gravitational waves without sources, ghost signals too structured to be natural. Some scientists call it stellar noise. I call it warning. There is a feeling in the void now, a hum beneath reality's fabric, like the universe is bracing for impact. The last time we ignored the silence, the humans returned. The next time, I fear they won't return alone. I sometimes replay the final transmission found on Epsilon Prime's beacon, the one the humans left behind. It's faint now, distorted by time, but the words remain clear. We remember the fallen. We rebuild the broken. Do not follow us. Learn from us. I've pondered that final line for decades. Do not follow us. It wasn't a warning. It was mercy. Because wherever they went, I believe humanity walked into something greater, something even they feared. Maybe beyond our galaxy lies a truth none of us are ready to face. Perhaps they became more than flesh and machine. Perhaps they became the reckoning of the cosmos itself. And when the stars finally go silent again, when every beacon flickers out and every empire kneels before the dark, we will know humanity did not disappear. They ascended. They became the law written into the silence between galaxies, the echo that reminds the universe. Patience is not weakness, mercy is not surrender, and silence is not peace.